A lot of history when it comes to the women's division at Saturday night's main event.
Moments ago on WWE Raw, what had been simmering behind the scenes erupted into full-blown confrontation. Asuka and IYO SKY, former stalwarts of the group Damage CTRL, had an explosive backstage altercation, and in one declarative moment, Asuka finally made it clear: Damage CTRL is no more. This isn't just another storyline twist, it's the culmination of months of tension, diverging ambitions, and unresolved issues. Here's the full story of how these two superstars came to this breaking point, what was revealed, and where this leaves them and WWE's women's division in its wake. Where it all began, the birth and glory of Damage. To understand how things reached this stage, we have to go back to when Damage CTRL was formed. Originally put together in mid-2022, the faction included Bayley, Dakota Kai, and IYO SKY. They were villains from the start, disrupting matches, interfering in title bouts, making themselves a force to reckon with in WWE's women's division. Their combination of athleticism, under the leadership of Bayley, quickly drew attention. Over time, the group grew stronger. New members joined, such as Kairi Sane and Asuka. Championships, tag team titles, high-profile matches, Money in the Bank wins, Damage CTRL racked these up. IYO SKY's rise was particularly notable, winning Money in the Bank, cashing it in, becoming a champion. The group's image, its internal dynamics, its identity were tied in both to those collective successes and the interpersonal relationships among its members. But already, cracks had begun to show. Members were injured or inactive. Bayley's leadership style came under scrutiny. The contrast between IYO's rising singles career and her stable duties, Asuka and Kairi's absences due to injury. These all created tensions, whispered backstage arguments, and storyline opportunities, many of which WWE seems to have used, sometimes subtly, sometimes more overtly. The build-up, tension, frustration, and conflicting ambitions. For months, IYO SKY had been showcasing extraordinary individual momentum, winning matches, defending the Women's World Championship, and becoming a central face, or heel depending on alignment, of WWE's women's division. At the same time, others in Damage CTRL had less consistent screens, sometimes sidelined by injury, or not as front and centre in WWE's storytelling. IYO had, on multiple occasions, openly expressed frustration. In backstage segments, interviews, and promos, she suggested that the group needed to change, that sometimes interference from stablemates backfired, that her own ambitions were being pulled in different directions. She wanted the dream match against Asuka, which had been discussed in past Damage CTRL days, but nothing ever solidified. Asuka, on her part, had been missing from action at various times, recovering, wrestling less frequently. When she returned, bits of friction emerged, moments when help was delayed, when miscommunications happened, when loyalty to the group seemed questioned. Fans saw hints, hesitation at ringside, interruptions, passive responses, backstage side-eye glances. All of this laid the groundwork. What we saw backstage today was less an isolated explosion and more the inevitable reckoning of two women who had once shared purpose, now diverging paths. The Raw's backstage confrontation and Asuka's declaration. On the latest episode of Raw, in the midst of build-up toward Night of Champions and the Queen of the Ring tournament, Asuka was doing what she does best. Promos, command presence, reminding everyone what she's capable of. IYO SKY interrupted, making reference to what had been discussed during the Damage CTRL run, this dream match between them, once envisaged as a highlight within the faction's drama. Asuka paused, listened. Then, In what fans may long remember as the line in the sand, she said plainly, "We are not in Damage CTRL anymore." The delivery was sharp, unambiguous, no wiggle room, no rhetorical fluff. That one sentence carried more weight than heckling promos or backstage whispers. From what is known, WWE had quietly disbanded Damage CTRL earlier in May after Dakota Kai's release. In the months since, the other members drifted, Bayley pursuing her own storylines, Kairi Sane and Asuka inactive due to injury, IYO SKY left as the only visibly active part of the group. But until now, there was no official declaration on TV. Tonight changed that. This backstage confrontation, this face-off, this line from Asuka, they made the dissolution real and public. Underneath the surface, what fueled their rift divergent goals, Sky appeared hungry for singles success. Her championship run, her ambition toward marquee matches, she wanted to be centre stage. Asuka, with her own legacy and championship history, likewise is focused on her own trajectory, victories, the Queen of the Ring, high-profile matches. Their individual goals, once aligned under the banner of Damage CTRL, began to pull them apart as paths diverged. Loyalty versus individuality. There were moments when group loyalty seemed tested, when interference backfired, when IYO felt Asuka or others were holding back or not supporting her fully. Reports suggest backstage conversations where IYO asked for help or clarity that did not come. Moments when promises made during Damage CTRL's earlier days regarding future matches or positioning seemed unfulfilled. Members inactive or departed injuries sidelined important members. Kairi Sane was out for a while. Asuka had periods of inactivity. Dakota Kai was released, which removed her as the moral or emotional middle piece between these performers. Bayley was no longer always aligned. Her own storylines took precedence. With fewer people keeping the group identity active, the pressure mounted on those left. What does Asuka's statement mean? By saying, "We are not in Damage CTRL anymore," Asuka did several things. 1. Shattered ambiguity. For a while, there was space for rumours, for possible reunions, for speculation. Asuka shut all that down, directly and publicly. There is no more group, at least for now. 2. Redirected focus. With the group gone, Asuka's free to chase her own goals without being constrained by group identity. Her match at Night of Champions, her run in Queen of the Ring, all of that now stands independent of Damage CTRL's legacy. 3. Fuel for future feuds, IYO SKY versus. Asuka becomes inevitable. They have history, shared moments, and now betrayal or at least disillusionment. WWE and fans alike have been waiting for this showdown. Asuka's statement opens that door. 4. Change in dynamics in women's division. With Damage. CTRL no longer an active faction, matches, alliances, rivalries will shift. Former group members now are opponents, storyline roles will evolve. That vacates space for new groups, new stories, new power dynamics. High's position, what's next for her? As the most active remaining member, IYO SKY now stands at a crossroads. She has been the one carrying the torch of Damage CTRL's name, often alone. Her championship success, her singles run, gives her credibility. But with Asuka's departure, officialized, what remains? She may lean fully into her singles superstar role, building matches and feuds without burden of faction identity. The dream match with Asuka is now a natural focus. Fans will expect promos, confrontations, possibly a pay-per-view main card bout. Backstage reactions. From what sources report, IYO feels hurt, perhaps betrayed, not because of personal animosity, but because expectations set under Damage. CTRL's banner were not met or were abandoned. Her emotional investment in the faction's identity was real.